The Department of Justice has finally spoken, and it is not good news for real estate agents, specifically buyers, brokers, nor is it good for consumers. This is something that is going to rock the real estate industry in a big way, and that is what we're going to talk about today. Brian here with LaMacchia Realty, and I've got an article pulled up. This is just a breaking news, if you will, of something that just happened today where the Department of Justice came out and basically filed for their intent in how they're going to handle the cases, the lawsuits against the National Association of Realtors and associated brokerages moving forward. So let's jump right into it. So DOJ advocates for the prohibition of cooperative compensation in the Nosalek Commission lawsuit. Now, if you remember this Nosalek suit, this was something that had been settled, and then the Department of Justice came along and said, no, I know we settled it, but we're not happy with that settlement, so we're going to reopen it back up again. It's like double jeopardy. It's like you're being tried twice for the same crime. It is nuts. The government agency says that buyers would still be able to ask sellers to pay their broker representation fees. Now, notice all the verbiage in here. The government agency says that buyers would still be able to ask sellers. So they can, of course, you can ask the seller anything you want. Doesn't mean that they're going to say yes. So this is a huge disservice to buyers, especially those who cannot afford representation. This is going to have tragic consequences for folks who are not of means. The Department of Justice is asking the real estate industry to consider a world without the practice of cooperative compensation. In its statement of interest relating to the MLS Property Information Network, MLS PIN, which happens to be my local MLS, settlement agreement with the Nosalek Commission lawsuit plaintiffs filed Thursday evening, the DOJ recommended that Judge Patty D. Saris deny preliminary approval of MLS PIN's second amended settlement agreement. While MLS PIN claims in its filings that the proposed settlement would eliminate the allegedly anti-competitive rule at the heart of its action, the DOJ vehemently disagrees. In its three proposed settlement agreements, where the DOJ claims are all essentially the same, MLS PIN states that it will make changes to its version of the National Association of Realtors participation rule, which requires listing brokers to make a unilateral blanket offer of compensation to buyers brokers in order to list a property on the MLS. Currently, in order to list a property, the listing broker must make an offer of at least 1 cent, but under the settlement, MLS PIN would drop that to $0. No big deal. In its filing, the DOJ claims that this is a, quote, cosmetic change. The modified rule still gives sellers and their listing brokers a role in setting compensation for buyers broker, the filing states. According to the DOJ, when a seller makes an offer of compensation to the buyer broker does not need to compete on their compensation price in order to attract clients. In addition, the DOJ claims that since offers of cooperative compensation are published in the MLS alongside listings, home sellers who choose to offer smaller amounts or no compensation at all will be disadvantaged, as buyer brokers will, quote, steer clients to properties that offer higher commissions. 100% false. This has been proven time and time again that agents are not steering clients to one property versus another. The reality is because there is not a commission offered to the buyer's agent and the buyer is now responsible for paying that, buyers are making the decision not to explore that property because they don't have the money to compensate their buyer agent. This is ridiculous. This is not steering. This is common sense. The other thing that this talks about is the fact that the seller is deciding what they are going to, quote unquote, pay the buyer's agent. That's 100% false. When you look at your listing contract, who are you paying? You are paying your listing agent. That listing agent is then offering to share that compensation with a potential buyer's agent. But in the event that there isn't a buyer's agent involved, what happens to that commission? The listing agent gets it, all of it, in its entirety if it's an unrepresented buyer, because there's, of course, work involved in facilitating that sale with a unrepresented buyer. So many gross misunderstandings of how this system works. They are in way over their heads. They have no idea what's going on, and it is going to have really catastrophic consequences for people who do not have the ability to pay for a buyer's agent. So let's keep reading here. As long as sellers can make buyer-broker commission offers, they will continue to offer, quote, customary commissions out of fear that buyer brokers will direct buyers away from listings with lower commissions, a well-documented phenomenon known as steering, the filing reads. Again, this is completely false. This is just someone saying something that they're doing an analysis on something incorrectly. So while the numbers may say this, the reason why it's happening is completely different than the fact that they are not offering the commission. It's the buyers that drive the process, not the buyer's agent. The buyers decide what properties they want to look at and which ones they do not want to look at. If they want to look at a property and it's not offering any commission to their buyer's agent, and then they know that they then have to compensate their buyer agent, say 2.5%, 3%, 4%, 5%, whatever that number is, whatever has been negotiated with their buyer's agent, then they are probably not going to look at that home because they don't have the money. Perhaps they don't have the money up front to pay for the buyer's agent. As an example, the DOJ cites Northwest MLS, which no longer requires listing agents to make offers of buyer broker compensation in order to list a property. Despite this being allowed, the practice of cooperative compensation continues and agent commissions have not changed. Imagine that. The Antitrust Division's own analysis of buyer broker prices in large metropolitan areas in NWMLS's region showed that the October 2022 change likewise had no meaningful effect. If that revision promoted buyer broker competition, buyer broker prices in large metropolitan areas in NWMLS's region should have declined relative to buyer broker prices in other large metropolitan areas where there was no similar changes to MLS rules, the filing states. The Antitrust Division's analysis, however, found no meaningful difference between the change in buyer broker prices in large metropolitan areas in the region and the change in buyer broker prices in the large metropolitan areas in the period after the October 2022 rule change. Of course, because the buyers are the ones that are driving this process, not the buyer's agents or the listing agents. It's not the agents driving the process. It's the buyers. This is so frustrating to read this. All right, here we go. An end to cooperative compensation. Instead of the rule changes proposed by MLS PIN in the settlement, the DOJ tells Saris that prohibiting offers of buyer broker compensation, meaning that sellers would be responsible for determining the only compensation of their own broker in the listing contract, and buyers would be responsible for determining the compensation of their own broker in a buyer broker representation contract, would better serve consumers. Well, newsflash, that is the way that exists today. You have a listing agreement, and in that listing agreement, you are agreeing to pay whatever you've agreed to pay to your listing agent. And then if you are a buyer, you have the ability to negotiate with a buyer's agent what you are willing to pay for that buyer's agent. Preventing sellers and listing agents from setting buyer broker commissions would promote greater price competition and innovation in the market for brokers' services, the DOJ wrote in the filing. If buyers set the compensation for their own brokers directly, some buyer brokers might choose to offer flat fees or hourly rates in lieu of percentage commissions, since the amount of time and effort required by a buyer broker has a weak correlation, if any, to the ultimate sales price of the house. And most, if not all, buyers would likely prefer a fee structure that does not reward their broker for helping them pay more for a home. I need to take a deep breath because there is so much misinformation in this analysis from the Department of Justice. I can't even. If buyers set the compensation for their own brokers directly, some buyers might choose to offer flat fees or hourly rates in lieu of percentage commissions. As a buyer agent myself, I'm also a listing agent. I do both sides of the transaction. I have the ability right now to offer a flat fee. I could offer an hourly rate. Actually, I can't offer an hourly rate because I am a 1099 self-employed individual. If I have an hourly rate, now all of a sudden the brokerage is going to have to pay me for my time, and now I'm going to be a W-2 employee, which comes with a whole host of other issues. So the hourly rate, that's not even an option for real estate agents. But the flat fees and just the whole concept of you negotiating with your buyers in advance, that is currently already being done. if you're a good agent, you're already doing this and have been doing this for years with a signed buyer agency agreement. So there is nothing new in this. This is a whole bunch of BS. And then they have the gall to talk about the fact that they prefer a fee structure that does not reward their broker for helping them pay more for a home. Do you think any buyer's agent objective is for their buyer to pay the absolute most amount of money for that home? That is ludicrous. What our job is to assist our clients and help them purchase a home. Get on that property ladder. And in this type of environment where inventory is at historic lows and you have anywhere from 10 to 20 offers on a decent property in every market out there, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to be competitive. This isn't us saying, oh, because we want you to spend more, we're going to make more. It's literally, we're trying to help you win this bid, because even if there's 10, let's say there's 10 offers on the place, the ones at the top are going to be pretty close. So the difference is going to be how good is your buyer's agent in negotiating that deal on behalf of your client. That is what we're trying to do. It is not trying to get someone to pay more. They're living in fantasy land to think that we have control over the price and we're encouraging people to pay more for homes than they should be. That is so ridiculously offensive. This whole thing is offensive. Another deep breath. Buyer's big ask. While the industry has repeatedly voiced its concern about forcing buyers to pay out of pocket for broker representation, the DOJ claimed in its filing that while some buyers may choose to pay out of pocket, others could still choose to request in an offer that the seller pay a specified amount to the buyer broker for the proceeds of the home sale. Thus, the current practice could continue where the seller factors the commission into the offer the seller is willing to accept. Yeah, that's a great idea. So let's see, there's 10, 15, 20 offers on a property. Yeah, I think as a seller, I'm going to accept the one that includes a $15,000 seller credit to help pay for the buyer's agent commission. It's not a competitive offer, right? So those are just going to get tossed into the trash. Those aren't even going to be considered. And who are the people that are going to be most affected by that? The people that are most marginalized in the first place, who can't afford representation. This is a huge, huge problem moving forward. According to the DOJ, having the buyer request that the seller cover their broker fee in the offer, similarly to how a buyer may ask a seller to cover closing costs, would make it straightforward for a seller to compare offers that include a request for the seller to pay the buyer's broker with offers that do not include such a request. The DOJ also noted that this type of conditional offer is permitted under federal government lending programs, thus requiring no change to lending regulations. That is also false, because you cannot use the negotiation. I forgot what article of the Code of Ethics it is with the National Association of Realtors, but you cannot use the offer as a vehicle to negotiate your commission directly with the seller. You can ask for a seller credit, but if they're talking about here actually stating that this is going to go towards the buyer agent commission, and right now that is not permitted under the current guidelines. So again, a lot of misinformation in here. What do you all think? I think this is terrible for everyone. Anyways, but let me know down in the comments below if you think this is a good thing or a bad thing, or does it really matter? Ultimately, are you happy about this or not? I have no idea. You obviously know where I stand. I think this is absolutely ludicrous, and this is going to cause many, many problems in the real estate industry. But we're going to work through it, and we're going to get to the other side, and where there is change, there is plenty of opportunity. So obviously I plan on educating myself and making sure that I am taking care of my clients as best as I know how, and making sure that they are protected at all times from the craziness that is about to ensue. Anyways, that's all I have. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments down below, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.